Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bailey.
Here.
Commissioner Gay.
Here.
Commissioner Sapsy.
Here.
Commissioner Bunting.
Here. Absent would be Commissioner Dave Owens. Okay, and would you like to say the prayer?
Our heads, please. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we just thank you for the day that you've given to us and the blessings in it. Tonight, Father, we have special prayers for our servicemen and women overseas and at home, the conflict that we're in currently, and that we pray special safeties to all. We ask continued prayers, Father, for our first responders. And also, Father, we put farmers back in our mind now. Spring is coming. They're getting ready. They're getting all the machine ready. They've got all their seeds ordered and ready. And it's time to go. We just pray, Father, that you would pray safeties upon them and that we would pray for good weather. We ask all these things, Father, in your Son's precious name, amen.
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 Stand for the pledge of. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, just a moment here, get a chair up. This chair is hard to move. Okay, brief comment from the public. Is there anyone here that would like to speak now? Is there anyone here that would like to speak? Okay, no one, so we'll continue on.
Can we back up and approve the agenda?
Okay, we'd like to, would someone like to approve the agenda?
Well, the agenda is presented. Support.
Okay, Commissioner Bailey has made a motion to approve the agenda and second by Commissioner Shopsy. Okay, consideration of consent calendar.
We got to vote on that.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. Gotta get myself organized here. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion has passed. Okay, consideration of the, just my last place. Consideration of the consent calendar.
The consent calendar is presented.
I don't care.
Okay, a motion by Commissioner Bailey and second by, was it Commissioner Gay or?
He spoke up first.
Okay, Commissioner Gay.
It's louder.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion passed. Okay, we will start with the administrator's report.
Few things to update you on first concerning bids that we have out. The first one, we had a proposal out for the ag lease at the airport that was due today. I'm going to extend that 30 days. We had a bit of a snafu with the public notice. One of them appeared in the Herald, but it appears 2 days after our mandatory meeting. So that really wasn't helpful. So to clean that up, we'll just extend the deadline through the end of March. And by the April meeting, we'll have be able to open that and get it awarded. We do have one bid that came in. I will contact the bidder. We won't open it, that we can hold it for that time if he wants. If he wants to submit a new one, he could. But we'll leave that up to the bidder to decide. The second one that was due today was for medical examiner services. And Sheriff, you'll be glad to hear we got two good proposals in. So you'll be seeing those probably tomorrow. I do have to do some work yet on registering them in just to get the spec sheet done so that you can see what the bids were. And then there is scoring criteria in there. I'll be asking you and a couple of your officers to help with that process. And you'll see that here at your next meeting in 2 weeks. To move forward on that. The last one, RFP was just issued late last week for the time and attendance software for the county that will automate all of our payroll, from the point where the employee enters the timesheet all the way through to the paycheck being distributed. I'm very excited about what we're going to see. We've already heard from the big three. So that's UKG, NeoGov, and last one escapes me. I talked to them just about an hour ago. Anyway, they're all already on board with the RFP. Stephanie puts that out on a national call, so we probably will get other interest in it as well. So I'm looking forward to some very competitive proposals on that time and attendance system. Just a few things to update what I've been doing. Last Thursday, I was at the MMRMA workshop in Lansing. These workshops, in my experience, have been very informative. This one did not disappoint. It was focused more on technology, and particularly AI. I finally understand why there's concern about making sure we have policies for the county if we're going to use AI. I did not realize that how quickly all of our confidential data could be released into the wild on the internet if we're not careful. So I'll be talking to Matt. I have some contacts at MMRMA who've been through not only setting up these policies, but been through the business end of a malware attack and how to respond to those. So we'll be getting in contact with them and get ourselves set up for just in case in that scenario. But for the AI, definitely a tool that I think would be helpful for a lot of us, but we've got to be careful. So we'll get that set up, get the parameters in place, and we'll be off and running. On Monday, yesterday morning, I was at a Gratiot Central Dispatch meeting, a special meeting that was called for the purpose of approving a proposal to put a road to the new 911 tower up by Elma. And Dave said at the meeting, if you ever go up north on 127, you'll see the tower right there. And I have business up in that direction after work last night. It's a nice looking tower from the freeway. But he's very excited about the prospect of getting that online. They did have a part that was failing on the tower or didn't work properly. Motorola said for that reason, we're going to pull that one. We're going to get a new part in. It's going to delay their activation of the tower by about 2 weeks, but otherwise everything else seems to be working. They didn't really anticipate that much of a problem with the road getting to the tower until we had rain and snow, and one of the big trucks tried to get back there, and there isn't a 2-track left anymore. So they're going to have to put in a road. They did get a bid. Total cost was $34,410 to put a 6-inch gravel road, 6-inch thickness, and I believe they said 10 feet wide back to the tower. Motorola is going to pay $15,000 of that. So Central Dispatch was on the hook for about $19,410, and that was unanimously approved by that board. So that's a project that's going in. Dave also mentioned they got a new floor in down at the 911 center, which I do appreciate those. If you don't build the floor right, it's hard to get things rewired. So it's a good thing that they are on top of that. A couple of other things for your reference in the immediate future. First, the MAC Legislative Conference is going to happen at the end of April. Any commissioners who want to sign up for that, just get a hold of our office. We'll get you signed up. We'll figure out which days you want to attend, and we'll take it from there. That's another conference, particularly if it looks like there's going to be any kind of activity in the legislature. That's a good conference to attend. I'm going to be particularly interested to hear about not only the data center discussion that they're going to be talking about, but also the new bill that was proposed to require a minimum lot size for all communities of 1,500 square feet, despite what your zoning ordinance says now. That is a huge, huge density issue that they're going to create, and I'm not sure they're prepared for it. There's an awful lot of infrastructure that would have to be built to support that. And unless the state's going to be writing the check for it, they probably should think twice about putting a density in at 1,500 square feet. But we'll see where they're going with that. I'm not sure that's going to.
Can I interrupt you for a minute? You said the end of February. I think that's the end of,
He said the end of April.
End of April.
end of April. Okay, I'm
It's the
sorry.
end of February. We got to think about it in 27.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Next meeting, you're going to have something relatively unique. I'm not sure you've dealt with before, but we've had an appeal of a Freedom of Information Act request or FOIA request. So the way this will work, the appeal is actually on the cost of the FOIA that's been requested. I believe that the invoice was put at about $150, and the applicant is protesting that. This is literally a hearing. It's you will decide whether the applicant will prevail, or whether in this case it happens to be from the treasurer's office, and whether you're going to require that the fee be assessed as written. So it's like a hearing. You will hear from the petitioner. You will hear from probably the treasurer. We will have our county attorney either zoomed in or here live to help with the process, because again, it is kind of a legal sort of decision you'll have to make. And take it from there. And your decision is final, unless, of course, then the applicant wants to go to the file with the circuit court for relief there. So that'll happen. It'll be, I think, a unique experience for a lot of us, but nice learning experience. And it's good to have that outlet for a citizen who feels that maybe we've calculated something wrong. There's an opportunity to get that cleared up. I've had two meetings here this last 2 weeks about millages. Once was when I was at a meeting with Greater Gratiot, the discussion of the millage that comes up this year was had. And then I met with the Director of the Commission on Aging this week, and their millage is also up. Both organizations have language in place. I'm going to get that to the county attorney for final review to make sure that we meet all the requirements that the elections require. I know the deadline, I think, is in May. I just soon get these knocked out of the box now, and we don't forget about it and not make.
Parks and Rec list also.
Parks and Rec is part of that Greater
The Greater Gratiot. That's what I thought also.
Yeah, so we'll have that to you. If it's not the next meeting, probably the one after that. There is some discussion about the use of the word renewal versus new millage. And there's some rules that we have to follow with that. That's why we shoot it through the attorney. We make sure we get the right language in that millage. We'd hate to have a pass and then not be able to collect because of a technicality that has happened. So we don't want to be on. Lastly, let's do the nickel tour through the next tranche of policies that you'll want to look at. And I promise, I mean, I could stretch it to an hour if you'd like, but I think try to make it a little less than that. The first policy on the stack that I gave you was the HIPAA policy. First thing I want to point out is that acronym. It's not HIPPA, it's HIPAA. That's a pet peeve I've had ever since this thing was adopted. But the HIPAA policy. Now, this is a policy that the county already had on the books. I've reformatted a couple of things, pretty much says the same thing. But on the very first page, under the authority, the reason we're doing that, there are policy rules in the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, better known as Obamacare, that require us to have this. And it's not because we necessarily have medical records, but well, we kind of do have medical records in some cases. If we have an employee who's off on FMLA leave because of an injury or illness, of course, we'll have that on file. So of course that's exempt. But there is another requirement, and that gets to the handout that's on the next table of keys, called the Gratiot County Medical Plans Notice of Privacy Practices. We actually have to hand this out to the employee because we offer health insurance, we offer dental, we offer vision. So we've got some responsibility here to make sure that the employees know what we have in line and how we handle that information. And that's what this handout is. This is not changed from what was adopted in 2004, with the exception of the header that's on it. But this is something I know Sheila hands out whenever we have a new employee as well. So put it back into the mix of all of our policies. So that one's a pretty easy one. The next one is the driver authorization policy, a proposed policy, and there is a form with that. I'm going to ask you to set that one aside for just a second. So we'll come back to it when we talk about travel reimbursement. The one after that, 2101, is the general financial policy. And again, this is primarily formatting. This is a policy that was on the books but did not have an adoption date. It does generally repeat what is already written up in the Uniform Budgeting and Accounting Act. That's referenced right on the first page. I would point out on the second page, 6.2.1, there is a list in here, which is, I think, and this is something that maybe Todd and I really get excited about, but probably everybody else's eyes glaze over. But it talks about some checks and balances internally, particularly when it comes to significant accounts that we need to analyze and keep track of. There isn't any one person who's responsible for this, but generally two, sometimes three people. It might be the finance director and treasurer. It might be myself. It might be a payable clerk, but there's a role for everybody in here just to double check to make sure we've got everything down the way it needs to be. Another item that this policy gets into is for lack of a better word, we call it reconciliation spot. For those of us at home, it's really used to do this, we call that balancing our checkbook. Just to make sure all the transactions are in the general ledger in a timely fashion and that they balance against the bank statements that we receive. Otherwise, how are we going to know what our position is, right? You'll see when you look at county audits across the state, I would guess that somewhere around half of them have a finding in there that the bank recs were not current when the auditor paid. In some cases, they might be a few months behind. I dealt with a county that was about a year and a half behind on its district court bank recs. Wasn't this county, but was that far behind. Again, even the auditor can't tell you exactly what your position is when it's that far behind. So we'll write it right into our policy. And again, this is already something that's in state statute. We'll just have it on our books as well. And this gives you a real good idea of who ends up being responsible for those things. So when we have questions, we know who to call in and ask. Right? The next one is the claims processing policy. And immediately you might think, well, that's the same thing as general finance. Well, it's getting a little bit deeper. And this is actually getting into a little bit into our internal controls. This is how we process a claim when it's submitted. So a department head gets a claim. What happens? Where does it go? How does it get there? Who does what? So this is all explained in this policy. And I do want to point your attention to the second page under 6.1.2. I don't know how often you as individual commissioners look at individual claims. So an invoice comes in from ABC company and it's been approved. How do you know what this is for? You've got some responsibility as commissioners for the financial condition of the county. You want to be able to crack the code so that when you're looking at these things, you can immediately tell what I'm looking at. This policy, again, already in place. I'm not sure that it was really enforced much in the past, but it's going to be moving forward. Will require on each invoice that a department submits, the first thing that you're going to see on the top is a brief description of what this is. And you've got an example here. This is actually a real bill that was processed. This was for the annual ICMA membership dues. You will also see a code that tells you what fund, what department, what line item this is being pulled from. And that gives us then an opportunity to go back, compare this bill to the budget and make sure, first of all, that there's been an allocation for it that's been budgeted. And then we can get into our general ledger and make sure that there is enough funds yet in that line to make sure we can afford to pay this. If not, we start talking next month about budget and budget amendments. The departments have some ability to get in to move monies around that are not tied to wages, benefits, anything belonging to an employee. So if I get into my budget and gosh, I'm $20 short on this line item, what do I do? Well, I could pull $20 out of the office supply line item and put it up here. It doesn't increase my bottom line, but it does give me that flexibility. Maybe I don't need as much copy paper this year. I'm comfortable moving it, whatever that might be. So that's what your department heads as budget administrators are already allowed to do. So the other thing you'll see on this statement that the department is writing on is how much it is. Sometimes, even though the bill might be $1,000, it might be only $750 that's attributed to one department, the other $250 for another. Sheriff's a great example. You might have $1,000 worth of tasers, $750 go to the road patrol, $250 go to the jail. So you can break it out that way. The other thing you'll see on there is the date that the department authorized it, and then most importantly, they'll initial or sign it so you can know that it came through the right person and was submitted for payment. The rest of this you read at your leisure. It gets into some more detail about some items that are pre-approved, electric bill, heat, things of that nature. Those bills are going to come. We need to pay those. We need to process payroll. We don't need to wait for a board meeting for that. We know we've got to do that every other week. Otherwise, we'll be talking tomorrow morning with administrative staff about the process. There should not be a single check otherwise that goes out of here without your approval. And I know we do that with the finance meetings, second meeting of the month. That's pretty common practice. Once a month they get approved. Some counties will approve them twice a month. You get a county the size of Hingham, that makes sense because there's a lot of bills that come in. But the way we're doing it right now, those bills are presented in the finance committee and that's where they're approved. Unless it's on one of those pre-authorized group, nothing else should go out. Now, there are exceptions sometimes when we have deadlines. Sheriff was just talking to us about an opportunity to purchase some tasers. But if we do purchase it by the end of the month, then there's a significant cost savings if we do that. That's accounted for in this policy. If that happens, if in this case, it's like a $30,000 savings, we don't necessarily want to wait for a board meeting and then forfeit that $30,000 savings. So there's a process in here that allow that to happen. You would be notified in advance. We'd get it done. Key those to make sure that there's already budgeted funds and that there's funds left in that budget to handle it. If not, then all bets are off. But if it's there, it's budgeted, we can save $30,000. We want to take advantage of that. So that's written up. And there are a couple other nuances in there that you might find entertaining. The next one is the business travel and reimbursement policy. And I want to talk about that at the same time as I do with the driver authorization. Let's deal with the business travel first. Nothing really exciting in here. If you have to travel on county business, you can be reimbursed for that. Right now, that reimbursement rate with the IRS is 72.5 cents a mile. Expect if we see gas prices shoot up here, there's been precedent that the IRS will adjust that mid-year. If need be, they can adjust it up or adjust it down depending on how the cost of gas is going. But in any event, by citing the IRS rate in the policy, we don't have to bring this policy back every time there's a revision to the IRS rate. It's just automatically baked into the policy. So when it happens, that's where we go. Now, there is a section in here on the second page where it talks about meal allowances. And believe it or not, the federal government, through the U.S. General Services Administration, has incidental expense accounts for meals based on location. So in Michigan, there's about a dozen locations, the Traverse City, the Detroit area, Lansing, Grand Rapids, Flint. These markets are just different enough where they're saying if you have a meeting in Traverse City and you need lunch, it's going to cost you a little bit more up there than maybe it would, say, in Mount Pleasant. So what they've done is gone across the entire country, broke every state up into these regions and said, if you need to be reimbursed for lunch, this is the rate. And they treat it just like they do that mileage rate. So where you get 72.5 cents a mile, they might reimburse up to $13.50 for a meal. What this policy does, and you just need to know this up front, and you can tell me if you don't want to do it this way. If I go up to Traverse City and I have my departure time and return time here that tells me what meal I would qualify for, but if I qualify for a lunch, I can take that travel reimbursement form on the meal column, write the $13.50 in there, and that's the end of it. I don't have to keep receipts or do anything like that. It's just, that's the rate that's recognized by the IRS. It's applicable to that region. So that takes some of the paperwork away from this. It also gives us, again, that assurance that in this case, the federal government has done the market study. They're comfortable with it. That's what it is. Now, of course, if you're there for a conference and there's a meal at the conference, you're not qualified for that reimbursement because it's been taken care of as part of the conference fee. There are parameters in here about the time. Again, if I leave before 8 o'clock and I get home after 6, then I qualify for all meals. But then you've got about 5 different other scenarios in here where you might qualify for 1 or 2 meals. Depending on where you go and how long you're there. So a quick word about how mileage is computed. Let's use myself as an example. I live, like 45 miles away. If I go to a conference in Lansing, that 45 miles between my house and here does not qualify for reimbursement. That qualification for reimbursement starts at my workplace to Lansing and back to the workplace. Going home is not part of that calculation. Now let's flip the coin on that. Let's say there's a conference in Saginaw and that's only 20 miles from my house. I don't get to reimburse from Ithaca to Saginaw. I get the 20 miles. Okay, so whichever one is less is the one that is qualified for that reimbursement. No questions now. It's in the policy that way. So if we see something calculated funny, we'll go back, take a look at it, make the correction if we need to. But that's only fair. If it's well, really best deal for the county, you're going to get the shortest distance, whichever one that is. But at no point, and this is actually one of the rules in the Fair Labor Standards Act, is you don't qualify home to work. That's not work, business, or whatever. So that's a personal choice where you live. There are some rules in here about overnight lodging that, again, should not be egregious or in any way. They're a surprise to anyone. Suffice it to say, you've got to be 100 miles away to qualify for lodging. But if your conference starts at 8 o'clock in the morning and it doesn't get out until 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night, and you stay over, that makes sense because it's going to end up costing us more for you to drive back and forth in some cases than it is for the lodging. That ends up being a personal choice. I don't mind the drive so much, but others might make sense. So the parameters are written in here. And again, if there are any special circumstances, anybody could bring to the board to get a waiver if it's needed. So these, while they are the general rule of the day, they are not cast in stone. If there's reason, that can be brought up. We have also a copy of the travel expense, the expense reimbursement form. This is actually an Excel spreadsheet, and while we don't have our forms software in yet, it turns out I know at least one of these software companies that does time and attendance actually puts this as part of the package. So I don't want to bid it out if we're going to have it already on something else. But in any event, because this is an Excel form, I can put it out on our webpage. You can complete these forms. It might even be easier to do it in Excel because you can save it and do whatever you need to. Calculations are already embedded as far as things like the reimbursement for travel. All you got to do is put your miles in. It will calculate it for you. If you've got other expenses, you put them in the right column, it will calculate it for you. You don't have to worry about doing the math. So that'll be available. Now, when will you not qualify for reimbursement for mileage? Well, that gets us back to the driver authorization policy. So this is one that was introduced to me by our risk insurance carrier while I was at Ogama County. We had a rash of accidents unfortunately involving police cars and deer. We just seem to get a lot of those. But we had a couple of other accidents that were relatively serious, that vehicles were totaled. And one of the questions that the insurance carrier, the adjuster, had was, well, what's your policy? How do you qualify somebody to drive for you? I don't know, well, they said you really need to, as an employer, be on top of who has a good driving record and who doesn't. If you've got to drive a patrol car and that's your job for 8 hours a day or 10 hours, whatever the shift might be, and you have an absolutely lousy driving record, that might be something we want to know before we hire you. And that might be a determining factor. And what they're getting at is we have to take some responsibility for the drivers we're putting out on the road. So this offers a nice quick test as to who's we want driving for us and who we don't. And this is all based on public record in terms of your driving record. On the second page, you can see a quick little table right in the center about what's acceptable and what isn't acceptable. If you have 3 or more preventable accidents and 3 or more moving violations, you get all the way over that to that unacceptable column, and that's somebody we don't want driving for us. Again, it doesn't mean they can't work for us, but we just driving component of that particular individual's job. Again, there is some flexibility, especially if you're on one of those borderline categories. If there were moving violations that were relatively minor, you might say, okay, well, you're borderline, but you just have to monitor it. This policy not only would be something that we would do immediately upon hire, we would have somebody fill out what is called that driver certification form to tell us how many accidents they've had, what the location was, type of accident, and so on, so that we can put in here. We also will ask employees to update that form every year. So if I have 5 moving violations in a year, that might be cause for performance improvement plan or something that we're monitoring, maybe even suspend the ability to drive. Most of our employees you're going to find are going to have maybe 1 or 2 violations and that's it. I do occasionally have experience where employees use this as sort of a confessional, and I get 20 years worth of driving violations. I'm only interested initially in the first 5 years and every year after that. So if you had parking ticket 15 years ago, it's not going to apply. It's just not going to move the needle on this. But we're being responsible this way, and that's the key. Particularly if you get some very serious violations, an OUI or something like this, we need to be aware of that, and we need to consider whether or not you're somebody who's acceptable for driving for the county. How do we enforce this, or what will it mean for an employee if they don't complete the driver certification form? That's fine, particularly if you're an employee who doesn't have to drive as part of the job. I would expect every deputy to have this completed immediately because that's what they do is drive. But if it's somebody that's in a clerical position and they don't drive for the county, okay, maybe it's not a big deal. And that's fine. But when you make that decision and you want to go to a conference, we're not going to reimburse you either for that conference because you're not listed among our certified drivers. And therein lies the hammer. So that's how we get compliance. I have not experienced, and granted, we only had 80, 85 employees at any one time up at Ogama County. I had no problem getting complete compliance with this. This is pretty easy stuff. But this also applies to any volunteers that are driving for us. So anybody that's got the Gratiot County name behind them when they're driving needs to be part of this. And that lets our insurance carrier know too, we've vetted this driver, they're okay. And again, we can document it, and I think, again, that's just additional protection for the county.
How did this interject with like the union contracts? Well, I wanted to be sure this kind of trumps on top of that, because I can already hear somebody going, well, I don't have to fill that out, or, you can't discipline me or whatever. Well, yeah, we can.
Yeah, we can. And let's just hope it doesn't come to that. It's such a common sense thing, but I could understand how somebody might get concerned about that. But I would be stunned if we have anybody that's going to be in the red category. I really would be. You really got to work.
Anybody. It's the people you're bringing in that you're never sure.
As it should.
Doing backgrounds and go, huh? On a driving record, and it just keeps spreading, and you're, oh, what? My.
Usually doesn't get very far, does it?
The last policy is the sale of real and personal property policy. Again, this is one that was already on the books. Definitely no tracking on whether or not it was ever approved. But it's pretty timely for us because we've actually got a couple of transactions in the pipeline right now that you'll see coming up here in the next few weeks. When it comes to the sale of property, we're not selling any that I'm aware of right now. But one thing I wanted to point out that maybe you didn't realize, and we've got in the definitions the term realtor. What does that mean? It's actually a term of art in the real estate business. If you're a realtor, it's actually been trademarked by the National Association of Realtors. There is a rigorous criteria you have to meet to be a member of the National Association of Realtors, and most realtors are part of this organization. But what that does is they've already done the vetting. This is somebody that's been trained, that knows how to sell real estate and represent you, as opposed to somebody that may be just sort of dabbling in it on weekends. They've got some backing and some education programs and so on that are available to them. You're getting a good quality professional in general terms when you hire a realtor. And this is a sale of real property, that's real property, a building or whatever. There are two ways that this policy says we can do it. One is to hire a realtor and have them put it on the market for us and do what needs to be done. Or we could auction it off. That's totally up to us. And by the way, this does not apply to anything with tax foreclosure or land bank. That's a completely different set of rules that the county treasurer deals with. This would be property owned or property the county, you as Board of Commissioners, want to purchase, is how this would apply. This policy also talks about surplus property. Sheriff has 2 or 3 vehicles that he needs to rotate out. How do we get rid of those? We can't just give them away. We do need to get all our fair market value as much as possible. I'm sorry to say those cars are probably lower than what the Blue Book would require, because of the type of duty they have. But how do we get rid of that? How do we document what we've done with that property? So those rules are set up here. What happened at an auction? When I say public auction, it might be the traditional type of auction where we hire an auctioneer and they auction a bunch of stuff off, or more likely, we team up with somebody who has an online presence that runs auctions online. And they generally will do those for a percentage of what the sale is. The contract we had at Ogama was, I believe it was 10% of the sale that they received. When it was a car, it was a pretty decent amount. When it was a filing cabinet, not so much. But nevertheless, they were able to run a business with that percentage. And I would expect we would do something like
He
that.
doesn't charge anything, right? Ranger bid doesn't charge us anything, right? For like, we sell the road commission,
They charge the.
there's like, yeah, the buyer gets,
Buyer pays.
it's strictly for municipality stuff. And
Even better for us.
yeah, oh yeah, I mean, it's wonderful.
This also sets forward the record keeping. So if we do sell particularly a capital asset, finance director is going to know about it and we'll be able to show the auditors when they ask for that. At the end of the fiscal year, we'll say, well, here are the fixed assets that we sold this year, what we sold them for. So we've got everything then in line. Our files will be in order. Everything's accounted for. I will point out, as county commissioners, you would be ineligible to bid because technically you're selling it.
Yeah.
So your families can bid, but you cannot. Caveat to throw out there.
Now, this doesn't come into play like just recently Parks and Rec transferred a vehicle to the maintenance.
Mhm.
This doesn't deal with any of that because it stayed inter-county, correct?
Stays within the county, it's just a transfer between.
That's, I wanted to be
At an
sure.
auction.
And
Yeah, that, I just wanted to be sure that it,
Transfer a vehicle from one department to the other.
I just wanted to be sure we were
The
good.
book.
Yep.
there are,
Another department.
there are special rules in here too, if that vehicle we wanted to give to a township. There, we can do that. That's a municipal exchange. That's a fine. So yeah, there are some exceptions already built into the policy. Now, it's going to happen next with these. I haven't even vetted these with my staff yet. We'll do that tomorrow morning at our staff meeting. We'll have a department head meeting next week. Departments will see these as well. So by the time you next meet, there's been a lot of eyes on it. We'll make tweaks here and there as needed. And they'll be ready to go in 2 weeks. That gets us about a third of the way through, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Okay, that's,
Okay, does anyone have any questions? Okay, we'll go ahead and continue on. Thank you. That was a lot of good information. Okay, next, Commissioner Bailey, would you like to report?
Yeah. February 21st was a Saturday. EA chapter at the airport had a FAA safety meeting, which the two presenters was out of Grand Rapids for the accident reporting, and the other fellow was out of Lansing for the mechanical. They had two different presentations. One was to inform or keep informed, the EA, let me start back. EA chapter is experimental aircraft. And they don't uphold to a lot of the different aircraft rules that normal aviation would hold to. They make their own aircraft, they do, so they come under different qualifications. But they still need to know what an accident is, or what an incident is, or how to maintain things and what things need to be maintained, and how to maintain them. And it was quite informative. I'm not a pilot. I'm just interested in the airport, and it was 2 hours long, but I moved by fast for me. It was quite interesting. So I did that. And then on, the 23rd, the Monday, I went to Breckenridge and, for the Breckenridge meeting, they presented their budget, public presentation of the budget. And then, next meeting, they'll have public hearing and adopt budget. Then, let's see, on the 25th, we had a health department meeting down in St. John's. And, we had Ally Barnes was down there to present, our audit for the year. We had a very good audit. Things are all clean. And, so I made a comment to the finance department there that they did a great job, and I'll leave a little bit for Steve to talk about. That's it.
Okay, and thank you. Commissioner Gay, would you like to report?
On February 19th, I went to the Gratiot Conservation District. It was their annual meeting at the Gratiot Isabella RESD, where I launched my political career. The food was good. It was all about land usage, not only agriculture, but other vacant land, forest and field. They help people use land and they give suggestions. They are knowledgeable about plants and animals, both wild and domestic. On February 26th, I went to the Republican meeting. They picked out delegates for their annual convention in Novi, also alternates. I went last year, so I gave other people a chance to go this year. It's an exciting year. We'll have a new governor and a new U.S. senator will be elected. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Shopsy.
All right, I went to the same Conservation District meeting, dinner. I had to leave a little bit early because Washington Township had asked me to make sure I was at their meeting. That was the same night. Washington Township had Fulton Township supervisor and clerk there. They have a unique situation for two different townships. They have a town that's approximately 1/3 in Washington Township, 2/3 in Fulton Township. Popeye, they have a sewer system that is less than ideal, shall we say. Hasn't ever worked quite right. It's a very large drain field sewer system. They are doing a comp study right now on what they should be charging because that's kind of completely underwater. So it was interesting, the history on it. And the clerk from Fulton had put together a multiple page letter that she read there, which gave the history of kind of how this has been going, when the updates were done, how the agreement is set up for pretty much any improvements or things that go wrong on the Fulton or Washington Township side, they cover in cost, and vice versa for Fulton Township. So it was interesting for me to hear that because I had never knew exactly how that Fulton Township maintains it because I wouldn't say maintain, they're the ones that inspect it, mow it, all that, because it actually sits in their township. Yeah, it's a unique situation for sure. The problem is, they have a number of accounts that are upside down. People aren't paying. So they're gonna probably be turning all that over to the county treasurer to tack that onto their taxes, because some of them are getting quite large. They haven't paid for quite some time. So, and it's, really unfortunate, but it's very expensive to keep this system up and running. And it doesn't help when people aren't paying for it. So, and they just recently had, I think every septic tank had to be pumped. They have it set up on a system where every 5 years they go through and pump every one of those septic tanks. And they do it on a kind of a rotating basis, so they're not doing them all at one time. It was interesting to hear about that. So
Which township is that?
Washington and Fulton. So Popeye is the town. North Star has the exact same kind of system. However, theirs sits on top of the sand hill where the drain field is, and it works flawlessly. Popeye sits in the bottom of a swamp.
Just cost prohibitive for most people to live in.
Very, 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 yeah.
Paying over $100 a month for sewer.
Sewer, yep.
It's terrible. The state just kind of.
Yeah, something's gonna have to happen because otherwise, my fear is these people's bills are gonna continue to just go up and up and up and eventually.
Well, it's gonna force them to move out, and then you're gonna have abandoned communities because we couldn't make it affordable for them to be there.
Yeah, the last thing we need is a whole
I
town.
could stay in Michigan.
Yeah, the last thing we need is a whole town like that.
Yeah,
So
but then that's
hopefully they can come up with something that'll work.
right.
Conservation, Washington, then the following Monday, I was at the Fulton Township meeting. As Mr. Baxter came in here and spoke. And I know when I go next month, they will be wanting to know if we have done anything with the blight. And to my knowledge, we haven't convened the group of people together to talk about it yet. So maybe that's something if you have your department heads meeting, or we can get the ball rolling on that so that I have something to report back to these. And George, I know he's in kind of the same boat I am. I'm sure you get asked about it at your township meetings because most of the people who are involved in it are in your jurisdiction and in mine. So they want us to have a blight enforcement. They're pushing for it. And so hopefully we can come up with something. Also in Fulton Township, we spent a fair amount of time, or they spent a fair amount of time talking about the Rainbow Lake sewer system. There's, I can't remember the name of the gas that, this has been a problem. The problem is you have the sewer ponds are on the southwest corner of Rainbow Lake. That sewer system has many sections, so the village of Perrington goes into the sewer system. The village of Middleton goes into the sewer system. The school goes into the sewer system. All the businesses there along 57 go out there. And these are pumped sewer systems. So in a gravity flow sewer system, which most municipalities are on a gravity flow, if you think about gravity flow, it's just the sewage is flowing downhill. You've got lots of room for air above it. Oxygen gets to the sewer, it starts breaking down, and there's gases that are emitted, but they are at much lower levels. This system is pumped, so if you think about a pump, it's filling the lines, so there's very little oxygen in there. So when it gets to the point where it starts flowing downhill, because it eventually gets there. And if you've been to certain intersections, you'll know exactly where you are by Rainbow Lake, because you can smell it. The problem is these gas levels have gotten so high, and they've been high since, they had documentation like the sewer system went online in like 74. They have documentation from 79, 80. These levels are, the one test they did, I don't believe they even it maxed out their gauge. You're supposed to be like below 10 parts per million. This gauge goes like 9,999 and it couldn't measure anymore. So what's happening is this stuff starts degrading the concrete, the valves that are made out of cast iron most of them are all original stuff from back in the 70s. And this gas is literally they have handles they just fall off because this gas has deteriorated that stuff. So they are looking into a system. There's a company they're not the only place on earth that has a forced sewer system. There is a treatment that they can do, and they're looking into it, but it's expensive, which is going to add yet another expense to their already underfunded sewer system. So I think it was like 60 some $1,000. And I think Perrington, which has its own village, has its own council, everything. They're like 26% of it or something comes out of Perrington and then the rest of it. So it's really interesting, but they're going to have to do something, and I know, searching for answers and possibly grants and what have you to try and help them out in this situation, because it sounds serious that they got to get something done. So anyhow, that's Fulton Township. Then went to the health department on the following Wednesday that George was talking about. We did go through the audit. We had our doctor give us our health report. She always does a nice job, puts together a nice presentation for us. That board really works effectively. Like George said, wasn't surprised that the audit came back that way. Pretty much everything with that group kind of runs that way. It's a well-oiled machine, I would say. It just kind of hums along and everything is like, you get all your stuff way in advance. You know what the credit card statements are. I mean, you know all this stuff long before the meeting ever gets here. It's really nice. You can kind of go there totally prepared with what you're going to hear. And they just do a really good job there. And what an amazing service they had. Something I did talk to Tom about this a while ago. Gratiot County, Montcalm County, believe it or not, is got the best Narcan dispensaries amongst our three counties. Because George is smiling because he knows most of the time when we see like vaccination rates and stuff like that, Gratiot County really does pretty good job. That stuff. So we're not used to not being like the higher bar or anyhow. But that's something that I think as a county we should look at. Seeing if there's other places to get them. There are some. We have one at our sheriff's office.
Jim's got one over in,
Yep, they have one in Elma, but I think there's other locations, you know, for a very rural county, maybe at some of our township halls or medical facilities or something. If we could get them there as well, would be a good thing. So, because I mean, let's face it, if you live down where I do, chances of getting, you know what I mean, is they're not going to get there. So,
actually, I even recommend carrying a couple in your glove box.
yeah, absolutely.
Because you never know.
You never know. So that's health department. And then just yesterday, I was in Parrington for the Parrington Village meeting. I did not stay the full time at the meeting, but they wanted to express their gratitude to the Parks and Rec department. If you haven't been to Parrington, there's the main park, the Don Andrews Park, or Don Andrews Pavilion that's downtown. Like, if you know where the post office is, it's right there. They have a really, really nice park for a small town. They have an amazing park. And they've done that using the grant program from the Parks and Rec. They have a really, really, really nice park and they're adding two more apparatus to it now. I mean, it's really going to be something. They also added, they also on the west side of town, southwest or northwest corner, they have their ball fields that are shared with the folks in Middleton use them as well. And they've started to add some of their swing sets and playscape stuff there. And it's really nice. It's if you haven't been there, they have really nice parks for a small community, rural community. They have very, very nice parks. So that's my report.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And next would be me. First of all, in your packet here, you'll have some information from Michigan Works. I sit on that board. We're getting ready at the end of this year, where we will go into signing a new contract for another 5 years. And so we will be working on that throughout this year. And I have given the information to our administrator, Tim here, to look it over too. Basically, we're the only ones, there's 5 counties. The counties would be Saginaw and Bay City, Midland, Isabel County, and us. And we're the only one of all the counties that only have one person that sits on that board. It goes by population, and I'm, of course, that person. What I have done is ask for an alternate, and that would be if I was ever sick or something would happen, this other person would know what's going on. And it's not, I don't think it's that of an important issue, but it is something that I have talked about before with with their board. So far, I don't think I've ever missed a meeting. If I have, maybe one, but I pretty much meet, or I know when they come and I'm sure to be there. The most important thing I think you should know is that the work that they do for all 5 counties, and it's very impressive. There's no hard copies, or yours might not be hard, but you can, on both sides, it tells you the statistics of how many jobs they have found. And also there's a paper in there that shows you, I can get to it real quick here, but it tells you all the statistics of the jobs that are going to be coming in the next few years, your qualifications to get like a college education, tells you different, like whether you need a master's or I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. But, and then also just plain jobs of, that you just need a high school education, or some people don't have high school education. There's still jobs there for them too. There are thousands of jobs that are opening up. And personally, I would like to start seeing some of our young people go to work. We have a lot of people that I feel like they're lost souls. I don't know what happens. Maybe they've dropped out of school early and feel they can't find a job. They don't have a way to get back and forth. And so this is some of the issues that I will probably bring up in the meetings coming up. Now, the nice thing about Gratiot County, we do have dial-a-ride. And this last year, I did go to Walmart to buy a phone. There was a young gentleman there, 19 years old. He won 2 scholarships in college from out of Detroit to go to college. He goes up to Central, does his 2 years, and he runs out of money. And so he goes to Alma. He does not know how to drive. He is renting someplace in St. Louis, and he calls dial-a-ride so he can get back and forth to work. And he doesn't make a whole lot of money. And so, you know, there are options. We're lucky that we do have dial-a-ride here. But there are other counties, probably Isabel County, I think they have something, but I'm not sure about the other counties. But that is one of the biggest issues, is getting people back and forth to work, making sure they're there on time. And, you know, maybe it's something, you know, I go to all the meetings, so I try to think of ideas. If you guys think of any ideas, please pass them on to me and I will take them to the meeting also. And, anytime you want to go and just visit to see what it's about, you can always come and Tim has come to one of the meetings and, found it a little bit interesting, I think. So that is one of the things that is going on, that I'm going to be very busy with it this year, with meetings, because of the fact that the contract will be coming up at the very end of the year. And then the other meeting I went to, or the other function I went to, was, something like, Conservation District. I was also at the dinner, very impressed. I'm impressed with young people that are going to college and that they take an interest in our farms. They get up there and they tell about what they've studied. And the one girl talked about, she walks 16 miles every day. She goes out to the farms and walks the farms, and for different, collecting samples and stuff like that. I think that is great. My biggest concern about Conservation District, which I go to their meetings and so does Mr. Shopsy, Commissioner Shopsy, is that they used to be funded. They used to have a millage through the county here, and somehow or another it was dropped. I don't remember when that would have happened. It wasn't a whole lot of money that they would get, but they use that money to write grants, to bring in more money to pay these young people to give them jobs. Now, the Conservation District is probably one of the most important things that we have in our county. It has to do with all your farmland. And that's one of the issues. And the second issue is that it's mandatory. And so they have been working literally with sometimes no money. I know that there was one girl that used to work there and told me she couldn't pay herself. There was no money to do that. And so this is going to be another issue that's going to be coming forward. In fact, I apologize. I've been trying to call them and tell them when our meetings are, so they will send somebody here. And so I'm hoping that we can start getting them to come in and put something together for all of, well, you've seen it, Commissioner Gay and Commissioner Shopsy already knows, and I think Dave, being a farmer, understands it too. But they do so many things in our county. Every county has a conservation district office, and it is to do all kinds of samples of water, your dirt and your farm. And they talked about there are a lot of new insects that have come into our country, and they're in our fields. And some of them they're trying to figure out what to do to get rid of them. Some are on the trees. I have a friend who has all these new trees in their front yard, and now they got a bug in it, and it's eating the plant or eating the leaves. And so this is what they will do, is go out, they'll test it, find out what the bug is, find out how to get rid of them. And these are very important things in our community. We don't want this to spread from one home to another. And the next thing you know, it's eating all of our trees and our grass and our crops. So anyway, that is one of the issues that I wanted to bring forth this evening, is that I would try to get them at the next meeting. They don't ask for a lot of money. It used to be we gave them, I think at one time, it was either $30,000 or $40,000. That's not a lot of money, considering all the work that they do. And most of that is to write grants so they can pay these young people that are coming there to work. And because they can't afford to pay them very much, they usually stay for a year because they do it for college, and then they move on to something that pays more money. So what we're trying to do is to get some of these young people, pay them a decent wage so they will stay here and take an interest in our farm and our land and everything else that goes with it. But that's just one of the things that they do. Other things they do is testing water. Commissioner Shopsy, you could name more things than I could. Do you know other things that they do?
Oh, their office is the head of the NRCS office, which is, where all kinds of different government programs. They work directly with the USDA office. That's why they're located right next to each other. They do a ton of different programs. But you're right, it's multifaceted what they do there.
Yeah,
And
they do things with the school. They have projects where
they
the
have
kids,
a nature center
Still.
or Sill Nature Center that, they're directly involved with to make sure that kids, I think isn't it every fifth grader in the county that goes there they do a program for all the fifth graders and,
Mhm.
so it's a neat group, neat organization, just
and they
like
do,
everything else there. Funding is an issue with just about everything, so, but I think they're clear that we can't just give them money. They have to, just like last month, we did the one with the Pine River. They have to come to us with like a contract for the funding that they're looking for. So we have to go in, they have to ask for it in that direction. We can't just give away taxpayer money.
no.
They have to come to us with a contractual amount of money and what they intend to do with it.
Yeah, at one time, they used to be on the millage for, I think it was Commission on Aging, I heard. And then I also heard there was another one that they were on with. And somehow or another, I don't know, when that was renewed, maybe they didn't. They've had a huge turnover, I know that, in the last probably 10 years. And so somehow or another, they fell through the cracks. And so I would like to see them back on their feet and doing, some of the things they do is collect tires, old tires that you don't want. They take and get rid of them. They collect something like over 1,000 or more.
Usually fill semi-trailer and,
One or two semi-trailers a year.
every
Yeah.
year.
For the last three,
Yeah, they do it.
this will be the fourth year.
Yeah, multiple years they do that, so.
Yeah. So anyway, that's all that I have to talk about. I went to those two meetings so far, and still got the month to go. Okay, let's move on. Is there any questions before we move? Okay, okay, consider of new businesses, consider to approve resolution 26-377 to appoint board members to Gratiot Integrate Health. Okay,
If you have any questions, you can let me know. I advertised in the paper.
Yeah,
We
the
received
four candidates are,
4 candidates are already on the board.
they're already on the board. They're all good candidates. They all, if you read their stuff, I mean, we'd be hard pressed to find, we're lucky to have the quality of people who want to be on this board.
I agree.
And I think they do a lot of good. Worked with them with the sheriff's department stuff. I see no reason to not want to approve all 4 of them again. So
Okay, I want to make that motion.
I so move that we approve the applications for Joseph Barton, Jared Merchant, Kendra Overla, and Casey Thalen is who applied, and they are also the recommendations from Melissa Guthrie from the actual Board of Health or Mental Health Board.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Shopsy and second by Commissioner Gay. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion has passed. Okay, the second one is consideration to approve resolution 26-380 to accept a quote to replace the courthouse fire alarm system.
Give those away.
Oh, you could, got one or two things, let the fire, something,
Oh,
house burn down, or buy this, you figure it out,
No,
figure it out.
and since with the history of, we better have a good one.
I think you.
How long have we had the old one?
Old
Say that.
system. We think that it was installed when the connector building went in, which was probably 30 years ago. I think it's original.
75 or something like that.
Okay. Well, do I have a motion to approve this?
Maybe Matt wants to tell us all about this new system.
I mean, I wrote a pretty elaborate memo, but I'll touch on a few things. One is that we wanted to go sole source on this. We wanted to go with EPS because they provide most of the other building security systems. We wanted to integrate the fire panel in with the new maglock system that we kind of have been working on this last year. So that's kind of unique about this project. And then we also budgeted it basically at the amount that they had quoted out when they did a building walkthrough over the summer. So we're asking for an amendment to the capital improvement project budget to cover the difference between the quote and what they're quoting now. And then we also, we kind of went through a different budgeting process last year, so it was missed that there were operational costs associated with this project. So those weren't budgeted for. So we're also asking to increase the budget amount with those operational costs too, to cover those operational costs.
So you need a total of 147,922, correct? Which is a budget amendment of difference of 7,922, right?
Yeah, that's for the project amount, and then there's a additional like $7,000, up to $7,000 that would be the operational.
Would be the cost.
It'd be around 150.
And it'd be good at what, 150? Yeah. It's under 155.
It wasn't in the thing, I don't think. It's 147,992 is what I see. So if we're gonna add more.
Yeah, so it's the 147,992 is written in there, but then the paragraph below that on the resolution.
7,770 for the,
Operational costs, basically the service and support contract.
Oh, I see, plus.
Yep.
Oh, okay, I was reading.
But yeah, that's kind of the gist of it. If anybody has any questions, so I'm definitely answering.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
make sure I word this right. So I so move that we authorize the upgrading of the firearm system for the courthouse complex at cost not to exceed $147,922, with the authorization also to spend 7,000, is it, do you need $7,770 or $7,922?
I think what you're actually probably doing is the resolution's already written. Tim already wrote that, so you're probably just making a motion to
Approve the resolution?
The resolution.
He's got it worded? All right. I so move that we approve the resolution the way it is written, resolution number 26-380. Make my life easier.
Or
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Shopsy and a second by Commissioner Bailey to approve resolution 26-380. All those in favor say aye.
I,
Those opposed say nay.
thank you.
Thanks. In consideration to approve resolution 26-381 to approve
Participation.
I can say
Participation.
participation in the pilot Pine River Treatment Program.
I talked to John about this. He'd gotten some calls from or he had actually talked to some of the board members from Parks and Rec. I talked to Tim about this. The way this is currently worded is that the funding would come from Parks and Recreation Fund. I think we should word that it should come from the general fund,
General fund contingency. Yeah.
general fund contingency. So with those corrections, I would so move to approve resolution number 26381, which is to approve the participation in a pilot Pine River treatment program.
Second.
Okay, a motion has been made by Commissioner Shopsy and second by Commissioner Bailey to approve.
Yeah.
Okay, oh, was it Gay? I'm sorry. Commissioner Gay to approve resolution number 26-381. All those in favor say aye.
Changes to,
Oh,
it comes out of the general fund contingency fund.
okay, with the change of general fund, contingency fund, I can't say that word. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion pass.
All right.
Okay. Okay, consideration to approve resolution 26-382 to accept a quote to reseal and strip the main parking lot at Reed Park.
This is John's favorite part of his job, getting up and talking in front of us.
That's right.
Okay,
Love this part.
I know. Parks and Rec Department is looking for your guys' approval, to reseal and restripe Reed parking lot. Nothing's been done to it since it was put in 2018, so, with the wear and tear from plowing it every winter, salt, the sun beating on it, it is starting to crack in spots, rocks are starting to pop out. So it is starting to become a liability issue, so by resealing it, restriping it, not only will that extend the life by 3 to 5+ years, it'll improve the safety and compliance, and then it will also enhance the curb appeal as park visitors enter the park. So the board is, there's 3 quotes there for you: Fox Seal Coating, Great Lakes Asphalt, and Michigan Paving. This project is budgeted for under capital development, and the approval request to proceed with the Fox Seal Coating for a total of $11,365.18.
you said it lasts from 3 to 5 years.
The new seal coat, before we'd have to do either another seal coat or hopefully not, but completely tear it out and put a whole new layer.
When it comes to the life, there's a life expectancy of any parking lot.
Yeah.
When it comes to it, then they have to pick it all up, grind it,
Yep.
if you will, and put all brand new down.
But
You got a ways away to go.
yeah, we got a long ways to go, so as long as we can maintain this and keep up on it, it'll prolong it even further before we even have to consider.
Preventive maintenance.
Yep. So,
So move, we approve resolution 26382 to resale and stripe the main parking lot at Reed's Park.
Second.
Second.
Okay.
Okay, motion was made by Commissioner Shopsy and second by Commissioner Gay to redo the parking lot at the park. Number is 26-382. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion has passed.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The park does look nice. Okay. Consideration to approve resolution 26-383 to approve and agree for student loan management service. That's on page 80. Okay. I think this is really an interesting resolution. The reason I say that is that I have a friend who took out a loan or went to college and had some of it that he didn't have to pay back. And about 12 years later, he now has to pay it back. That's why I wonder, is this something like the same thing or?
Well, in reverse, it would hopefully, if you chose to sign up for their services, it would help you either consolidate or get you enrolled in a repayment plan that was, one that would be more consistent with your own income and would not have to pay something back. If they enrolled you in something where there was a forgiveness, that would be it. It would be forgiven. But the main thing that they do, I said through one of their webinars, is guide students oftentimes won't just have one student loan. They maybe have had to get several of these per semester, and they might be at different interest rates. They might be different amounts or whatever. They also walk you through the pros and cons of consolidating those loans, and that maybe that'll help get that cost down, whatever it might be. But they are passed off and endorsed by Michigan Association of Counties and NACO as an organization that's very professional in terms of being able to help people do this, help guide them through the process. Now, anybody signing up for it, of course, would have a fee to pay. It's either $70 or $120, depending on which plan you want. But they offer about 2 or 3 seminars a month if you want to sit down and watch a YouTube video about some interactive Zoom meetings that they have if you have questions. But it gets you into that area. It's an avenue to get, in this case, our employees into that portal to get whatever assistance they might need. Again, no cost to the county, but could be very beneficial to an employee.
Well, I move to approve resolution 26-3883 to approve an agreement for student loan management services.
Okay, motion has been made by Commissioner Gay, supported by Commissioner Shopsy to approve the resolution 26-383. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion has passed. Thank you. Okay, consider an unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business that someone would like to bring to the board? Okay, additional public comments or board comments. It's nice to see a big crowd here tonight.
Move adjournment.
Or